China is fully prepared to fight to the very end because the world is big enough that the United States is not the totality of the market in the world. So
It's not the totality of the market, but how much of the market is it? How much of your market is it? Right? The United States, I believe, purchases a third of all consumables globally, and the largest exporter of consumables is China. So he could talk the bullshit, but you know, this is probably like a CCP, propagandist shill. I'm sure. I mean, just trying to. They're playing the game. They're playing the game. That's what they're doing. That's what what they're trying to accomplish. They're trying to use the current leverage, right? That they have, like anybody would, to get a good deal, right? Anybody would do that.
So, if the United States wants to go in that direction of completely shutting itself out of the China market, be my guest.
Yeah, and China will lose the US market, which, as I've said, is
We
15%.
don't
You
care.
can't.
We don't care. China has been here for 5,000 years. Most of the time, there was no United States.
Yeah, you also didn't you didn't have toilets. What kind of what does that even mean? All right, yeah, we weren't there 5,000 years ago, and now you've gone through an industrial revolution, and you're addicted to the money. You're addicted to our money, and we're addicted to your cheap shit. So, it's our fault too. But it's for him to say, okay, 5,000 years. All right, yeah, that's great. Yeah, the country might still be there, but I'll give you guys a look at some figures in a second, just to illustrate the like they are screwed. They're absolutely fucked. Like, they could talk all the shit they want, but there's no way that they can sustain this.
States, and we survived. And if the United States wants to bully China, we will deal with the situation without the United States. And we expect to survive for another 5,000 years.
When you hear Donald Trump say China wants a deal, it just doesn't know how to go about it. They're proud people. J.D. Vance talks about Chinese peasants. What do you make of their conduct in this respect?
If J.D. Vance thinks that he's dealing with the peasants in China, and I'm proud to be a descendant of the peasants, most of us are descendants of the peasants anyway, that's our tradition. We are farmers before, but now we are one of the leading industrialized economies in the world. So I'm sorry, J.D. Vance doesn't know what he's talking about. And therefore, I don't think there will be China-US dialogue unless the United States changes its attitude towards China. Deal with China as it is, show respect to China, show respect to the Chinese people, and don't try to impose your prejudice and biased view about China or about the rest of the world. China is fully prepared to.
So basically, I mean, he's in a bad spot. Trump's in a bad spot. But the good thing about his bad spot is that he's not running for another term, at least not right now. Right? He is. So let me show you guys how much bullshit this is, what this guy's talking about. All right? Here we go. So if you take a look, I asked Grok, I said, what is a poverty line in the United States? In 2025, the U.S. Poverty Line Guidelines issued Department of Health and Human Services set a poverty line at $15,060 for a single human and $31,800 for a family of four. But these figures are adjusted for household income, adding another 5,000. Okay, so basically around $15,650 per person for an American individual would be considered the poverty line in the United States of America. Switch over to China. What is a poverty line in China? Well, poverty line in China primarily applies to rural areas, which was set back in 2010, and it's been accounted for inflation. It's about 4,000 won, or whatever the hell that is, which is $560 annually. $563 annual. That's the Chinese poverty line. That's what they consider poor. I mean, I'm not a math guy, but that's like, what is that, 30x? I mean, it's 230 cents a day. That's in so that was in translates to 230 cents a day at 2011 purchasing power. So just, I guess they're going to adjust for inflation down it. So $5 a day. $5 a day. That's the Chinese poverty line. So you can't tell me how dependent you guys are on our industry, on our money, right? On our, we're buying all your shit. And if we stop, you're screwed. You could say all you want, right? At the end of the day, what'll end up happening, right? Americans will have to pay more for a television set. You're going to have mass starvation. Those are the two worlds that we're teetering against right now, right? We got to pay. The TV was $100. It was $200. Now it's $300. Okay, a quarter of your country is starving to death now, and that's actually, those are the facts. That's what they're facing. They can talk a big talk. They can come to the table espousing, coming out with a big game and saying, "Oh, I got this, I got that." We're not going to bend the knee. Whatever. I mean, here's the problem, right? From their history, they're willing to wipe out massive amounts of their population. I mean, when you talk about like overpopulation and the world being overpopulated, I don't believe that, but China kind of believes that. So maybe they were just willing to let a bunch of their people die. It's at the bottom of this, and the first paragraph, Chinese population around 347 million are classified as poor. The entire population of the United States is the Chinese poor, is equivalent in terms of numbers. They have as many people that are designated poor, and now, mind you, no, they're poor. In comparison to our poor are rich. Their poor are poor. These are rural people that are just barely getting by. They're talking about dollars a day these people are making, and you're telling me that you're going to stick to the guns and that our people are going to be fine. Yeah, I'm sure. Like your higher end people are going to be fine. Basically, what he's saying in this. He's saying he doesn't give a shit about the poor people in China, which they don't. I mean, and we know that. And, to be fair, for a long time, nobody gave a shit about the middle class and poor people in this country either. I still think many people don't. But, I mean, to think that we can't hold their feet to the fire, this is a pivotal moment. If I don't see him capitulating, I think Trump's going to take this all the way. I think he has to take this all the way. This is the only time where we can basically, bend China over a knee and do what we got to do. It's never going to happen again. There has to be a reset in this dichotomy we have going on here. U.S.-China relations, China and the world relations. China's taking advantage of everybody. They're not playing the game by the rules. They're doing whatever the hell they want. They're stealing massive amount of intellectual property. You invent something here, within a month, they're making it over there with, almost slave labor, selling it back to you. It's terrible. They have to be put in their place. And you know what? He's 100%. I have more respect for Trump than I ever did before, because he's taking the slings. People on his side are now against him. Everybody is like, starting to get worried. The media apparatus is spinning up. They're coming out with stories, 10, 12 stories a day on each network, just hammering at him. And luckily, the people that are around him, I'm sure they prepped him for it. They're like, this is going to happen. They're going to come at you. This is because of the nuance of this situation, because of the nuance of what's going on. You can't just say a headline and people understand it, right? There's a lot of sophistication into this discussion. And what that ultimately does is that gives room for people to talk shit, for people to spin up these stories, for people to get on the other side of this issue and just hammer him. And that's what they're doing. But yeah, I thought those points are fascinating. Like I said, I just asked Grok, what's the poverty line in both countries? Gave me the answer, and it's just astounding. People will not believe the fact that, between $15,000 a year and $500 a year. That's the difference. Thanks a lot for coming out. This was a great video. Again, these are the arguments that you have to, get people to understand. When people are saying that, what we're doing and this and that, not understanding the tariffs, say, listen, guys, we have to stay the course. They cannot withstand this. We can stand a higher price in the tech sector or whatever the hell it is. These people can't eat without selling us this shit. So, the fact that I think later on in the interview, he was saying that they have the cards. They don't have the cards. They may have a massive amount of people that they're just willing to let die. They might have that, right? But they definitely don't have the cards. Guys, give me a like, share, subscribe. Thanks a lot for coming out. We'll see you again in the next video. Thanks a lot.